For the last Sunday in June, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, Karen Handel prevails for Congress. There's a rollback of the tax rate in Fulton County. And once again, a new Phillips Arena. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Glad you could be with us today. Yes, one more time on the 6th Congressional District of Georgia. It is the race of all races, $50 million, the most expensive congressional race in history, and it's finally over.
Hallelujah.
It really is. I mean, I love politics, but that was too much. And I was actually spared a week of it because I wasn't here last week. So you've had more than I've had.
Right.
In the end, however, it was you, Jeffrey, who all along saw this for what it was. And you said 4 months ago, as I recall, I remember being surprised when you said it, that Karen Handel would win because it was a Republican district and the margin would be close, but she would prevail. Did you change your mind at any time?
I did change my mind because I believe the pollsters, Phil and I were having this conversation before the tape rolled, and they were wrong. And they've been consistently wrong. They were wrong during last year's presidential election. They showed this to be a neck-and-neck race. Last week I said I thought that Ossoff might actually pull this thing off, and so I reversed my position. Even though we know that this is a safe Republican district and that you cannot overwhelm the votes in North Fulton, Milton, for instance, and East Cobb with North DeKalb County. But, you know, all of the hype, all of the money, I think gave a lot of people the notion that this was competitive, only for it to end up 4 points.
Well, it was competitive, though. That's, you know, it's funny. Everything's relative here. From a Republican and conservative perspective, Phil, you and I both believe that 6th congressional district should be a 15 to 20 point Republican margin, no matter what.
Well, although we had a caveat, we both agreed it's a special election, and you don't get the turnout in special elections that you do in, say, primaries or general elections. We all knew that. All four of us said turnout was the key. Now, to go to your point,
and they did turn out.
They did turn out.
53%.
They did turn out, and Jeff identified some of the areas. North Fulton, heavy. East Cobb, heavy Republican. And it was funny to hear the Democrats say, oh, this is a model nationally. You could hear even 2-3 days before the election, this is a model. We're maybe bringing in independents. No, they didn't. The millennial vote was down. We even talked about that in some of the polling. They didn't want to get out. So the Democrats, and I know we'll probably be discussing this later in the program, the Democrats have a lot of soul searching to do on their strategy because all Republicans of all stripes are united. You remember I sensed that going around the district. You did too.
Well, I think the only hope is that the case on gerrymandering that's going to the Supreme Court will give some relief to the way the districts are drawn. And that's the key. It was a Republican district and it was drawn to be that way. 3 different counties, Fulton, DeKalb, Cobb, all a part of this.
But it's always been that way.
No, it hasn't always been that way, Chuck. Now, you know that it hasn't. You know that it hasn't.
It had Cherokee instead of DeKalb.
County, no, DeKalb County was the 4th district at one point, all of it. And folks in your area didn't want to be represented by an African-American Democrat and asked to be put into a Republican district. Very good. She was an African-American Democrat. And so that's
she's a radical communist. Radical communist.
Well, she was.
Alexis makes a valid point. The case of political, not racial, but political gerrymandering is now before the Supreme Court. They took that on just this week.
Well, you guys can keep hoping and wishing and
praying. It's not a matter of hoping and wishing. You know, it's a Republican district, and that's the way it
Alexis,
turned out.
You would be a good one to answer the question that's facing Democrats right now. Should Jon Ossoff have campaigned differently? He ran nationally against Trump. Locally, he ran. And if he said it one time, he said it 100,000 times. Both parties in Washington are wasting your money. He ran like a moderate Republican or a conservative Democrat. That's what he sounded like. Now, the commercials were altogether different.
Yeah.
But Jon Ossoff himself, now the left is saying he should have run full Bernie Sanders. Do you agree with that?
I do not. I think he ran the campaign that he thought he needed to run to win, and he had to attract Republican voters. That was the only way he could win, and the independents. So he got some, but not enough.
Well, I think the Democratic Party is going to have to listen to what you just said. In a lot of these districts, what are there, 23 around the country that Hillary Clinton carried, but they have Republicans. So there's two sides to the coin. The Democrats have to see how center they're going to go, and the Republicans are going to have to see how far to the center they go in some of these really competitive districts.
You're exactly right. And what they're going to have to do is tailor that message district by district. You know, we've seen it on both sides. We've seen them go out with the Bernie Sanders message and lose to Republicans. And now we see them go out with this milquetoast kind of centrist message and lose. And they really need to figure out what that message is going to be.
Exactly.
But more importantly, they need to tailor the message to the district. You couldn't have tailored any other message. You couldn't tailor a Bernie Sanders message to the 6th district.
No, well,
Dick, the
millstone either.
The millstone around the neck of Jon Ossoff were two words: Nancy Pelosi, and she is a
Correct.
drag on a lot of these so-called moderate, centrist Democrats, whatever you want to call them. They're liberals, but Pelosi is going to be a huge problem. We saw that last Tuesday, but it's going to be a huge problem for the Democrats nationally.
But you know, this race can't be duplicated. That's another thing that we'll step back a little bit. It doesn't really apply to 2018 because $50 million is not going to be spent in those 23 competitive.
Oh, I disagree with you. I disagree with you.
Not $50 million.
Well, they're going to be very targeted. Those 23 seats are going to be very targeted. You'll have millions there.
But you won't have 1,000 door knockers like Jon Ossoff did. Karen Handel had a great ground game. We were a little bit critical. We were worried about Karen Handel's campaigning ability on this side of the table.
Yeah, I don't fully agree with you.
She had the ground game.
I think the Democrats are going to throw in, they're going to target and they're going to throw in a lot of millions to they did boost their vote. It just, the Republican turnout was more. Right. So they did boost their vote. Now, if you look at district by district, you could argue that Ossoff model could work in some districts.
And I think in different parts of the country, too, outside the South, he may be able to be a little bit more left-leaning. It just depends.
Plus, he didn't live in the district. You know, we didn't talk about that. I think that hurt more and more with independents.
That was huge.
I heard a lot of that.
I especially heard it from my friends around the country. Is it true he doesn't live in the district? No, he doesn't live in the district.
Well, nationally, it was more of a story, I think, than locally, because people know that Emory is right there near the district. I mean, there is this.
Plus, I think there's one thing we missed, too. Karen Handel ran a pretty good campaign the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
She ran a very good campaign, and maybe if Jon Ossoff had smiled more, I don't think he would have won. But I think I think we're having a good discussion on some of the lessons learned. But boy, the money didn't work.
And I'm gonna tell you, I don't think that anybody is in a position to really, rest on their laurels after this election. Not in South Carolina, when you saw an obscure Democrat come within 3,000 votes of the Republican there.
Yeah, suppose a couple of million had gone that person's way.
Exactly right. There needs to be some soul searching, I think, on both sides.
Well, I think the soul searching on the Republican side has got to be, despite Karen Handel's win and really an excellent campaign once the runoff began, there were huge Republican defections. That is not a 52-48 district.
Right.
That is at worst a 55-45 or 58-42 district. Enough Republicans defected to make Jon Ossoff competitive.
I don't know about defected. They were on vacation. They didn't vote.
Oh,
yes.
Come on.
No. They were worried about Donald Trump.
Yes, absolutely.
I disagree with you.
Absolutely.
In fact, I think Trump helped, the Trump popularity in this district helped Karen Handel. I disagree with you. I think that I wouldn't call it defections. I think you just have trouble getting people out to the polls on both sides. Well, that South Carolina one was way low turnout.
I do think the odor of President Trump did turn some people off.
Well, one of the things was the AJC poll, and again, we're taking polls with a grain of salt these days, but it showed that 81% saw healthcare as the major issue. And of course, as we know, the House healthcare bill is woefully unpopular. Senate bill ain't going to be much better. And I think that may have weighed down and made that race a little bit more competitive.
The flip side of the coin is Obamacare is cratering. You only have one carrier in the state of Georgia, so that helped Handel.
We've got to get out. I want to do my last thing. I missed last week, but this is just the last week of the campaign to show the millions spent. But I know I'm out of time here, but I've got to do this. This one came from the Humane Society.
Mercy me.
It is simply amazing how far weird left the Democrats have gone. First of all, it accuses Karen Handel of being the national spokesman for the fur industry. I missed that. And furs are the epitome of glamour, she says. It also says that Jon Ossoff supports a bill in which cases of domestic abuse, the pets of the household, must be taken care of by law enforcement. As if police answering a domestic call don't have enough to do. Really? At all? Oh, and then one of the bills he supports was that you can't slaughter horses for human consumption. Anybody here in favor of that?
I didn't know those
Really?
were burning issues.
I know, but that was it. I mean, at the last minute, the Humane Society, really? Let's get back to adopt a pet. All right. There was lots of local news this week, and we'll tell you how the taxpayers of Fulton County got a break when we return.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
You want to see politicians in full retreat? Look at Fulton County. Wow. The Board of Commissioners voted this week to ignore the work of its property tax assessors and return the county to the 2016 property tax values. Jeff, that doesn't work.
It really doesn't. You're relying on a 19th century law that some enterprising lawyer dug up somewhere. You got to go before the Department of Revenue. We don't know what they're going to have to say about this, but we do know that the Atlanta Public Schools is pretty upset with this. The city of Hapeville doesn't like this, and the fact of the matter is, even with these. All of these cities have passed budgets based on this tax digest, right? And then they each had the option of rolling back their own millage rate to offset it and to give people some relief, and to make sure that you still have money going to Fulton County schools and Atlanta Public Schools.
Yeah,
well, the politicians, to your point, were asleep at the switch. For the Fulton County Commission, this was a train they couldn't see coming for the last 3 years. And of course, it's a Fulton County, and I'm glad that obviously they froze it back to the 2016. We do know that Senator John Albers and others in the Fulton delegation are now going to address this through the legislative delegation. Jeff, you're making a good point, though. You know, the cities and the school system of Atlanta, of course, a lot in Fulton County have to readjust. But I think
it's not clear the state's going to let them do it, in my view. I think Jeff made an important point there about the Department of Revenue.
They're going to review
They may just say, you can't do this way.
Well, I think Lynn Riley, who used to be a Fulton County Commissioner, understands the revolt that's going on.
But you know, really...
That was a good catch by that county attorney, though, by the way.
To find that obscure, old, ancient rule. But the other thing that's so interesting about it is that they've had this state interference, if you will, by legislators saying they cannot increase taxes, and so they've had this cap going this way, and so they've just sort of can't win for losing.
Well, there's nothing wrong with caps, but you just have to realize, you know, what's happening year by year with the assessments, and you have to keep up with it.
Well, and they didn't do that, and the recession, the Obama recession, just did in the whole
Bush
property
recession.
tax thing.
Come on.
And for years, but I disagree
ago.
with you. They should have seen. You can read the paper each day and see property values increasing. And what was it, 30% of the taxpayers of Fulton County were facing a 50% increase?
Right.
Really? But now we got to say, I think the ball is now in the state's hands, and we'll see what they do with it, because it just may not be legal what they're attempting to do. In DeKalb County, a really strange thing, Jeff, a whimper, not a bang. The infamous case of the $4,000 check made out to Lee May, as I recall, who's the acting chief executive, but then cashed by Morris Williams, a county employee.
No, by Cotman, the other guy. He cashed it at his family's
the contractor check cashing business, right. And the missing, and where did the $4,000 go? Well, Morris Williams and the contractor have pleaded to a misdemeanor.
2 different misdemeanors, yes.
Yeah. That seemed kind of lame by the district attorney to After all that, to have misdemeanors and no jail time served?
No, because I don't think that anybody was ever really able to get to the bottom of it, and even now nobody knows where the $4,000
Where
went.
it even went.
True.
You know, so it was an Alford plea, at least on the part of Cotman, who pleaded to misdemeanor theft by taking. And an Alford plea essentially says, I'm pleading guilty because I just want to get this over.
They just wanted to get rid of it.
I don't think I'm
exactly
And that
right.
may be the new DA's tack as well.
Get rid of it.
And I think that the DA just wanted to clear this stuff up from
the previous
past.
DA. There was a mess from the previous DA.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. And she just wanted to
Get it off
rid
the
of it, and
books.
she did. And I'm glad that it's over. What was strange to me was that it was on the front page of the New York, of the AJC. That was just bizarre. I didn't get the reason for that.
I did.
You said it was infamous. I thought it was fairly obscure in the midst of everything that was going on in DeKalb County.
That was covered heavily for weeks over the who got the money.
Well, you know, you got Shandaric Barnes, who they've been covering left and right. That's on the Metro front.
We're looking at Lee May's handwriting and all that. You remember?
Peachtree and Pine has been going on for 12 years or more, and it's on
in the framework of DeKalb corruption. That wasn't that big a deal. It was.
You're right. It was chump change.
Yeah.
It wasn't front page news.
One more local topic. Gwinnett County, the infamous Tommy Hunter, the commissioner up there, who said nasty things about John Lewis, has been reprimanded by the whole county commission. I guess that's all the ethics commission of Gwinnett County could do. Was the most serious thing they could do was issue a reprimand.
Well, they shouldn't have done.
Shame on you.
They shouldn't have done anything. You know, if the county attorney, I don't know whether he doesn't know anything about court decisions on protected speech and the First Amendment, or if maybe the commissioners didn't listen to the county attorney, but this is protected speech. I mean, you can say ugly, terrible, horrible, reprehensible things, but you're protected by the First Amendment, whether you're a public official or not. And they had no business. This is a slippery slope that they're going down here. We should ignore these bodies that try to restrict speech.
I would disagree with that. I think that in this age of
to the
incivility, it's not just up to the voters, but it's up to your colleagues. You know, if we're going to say something inappropriate on this show, I'd probably, you know, if I were to do it, I think that I'd probably, you all would weigh in. And it's that way with anybody, whether it's a commission or a Congress or city council or anything else. It is a reflection on the body as a whole, and those other members have the opportunity to be able to wag their finger and say, don't do that.
Yeah.
I want to reprimand him.
Go ahead.
Let's work on a
Go
reprimand.
ahead. I think it's
We have
silly
to
to
get
be
out.
reprimanding everybody all the time.
We have to get out.
Pick my nose.
When we come back, the Atlanta streetcars might be free again. Really? I thought they were still free. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
So the infamous, that's three infamouses in this broadcast, the infamous Atlanta streetcars are going to be taken over by MARTA, which makes sense. You don't need a separate city bureaucracy when you already have a transit agency. And the mayor, Kasim Reed, and Kwanzaa Hall, the councilman has been leading this charge, says that the streetcars are likely to be free once again, like they were for the initial trial period. But aren't they free? They're not collecting, they're hardly collecting any fares at all, are they?
No, you know, I'm in that area a lot where the streetcar is, and you see people lined up now, especially around the King Center at the streetcar stations. They report that ridership is on the rise. I think that with MARTA taking over, you'll see some more of that. And there's absolutely no reason
Still
in the
on the
world
honor system,
why
though,
it
isn't
should
it?
not be free. You
People
know, you go to
aren't
some of
paying,
these. Well,
You're not paying.
Well, I don't know let me say if you're here from another city and it says pay $1, don't you pay the $1?
But you're not paying.
But if you live here, you know that there's no real charge, right?
Well, I didn't know that. I thought you had to pay the $1. But
There's no monitoring system yet either, Jeff.
All right.
Well, I don't know, but in any case, I think it's still going to pick up this summer in tourism as they go from the King Center to the Centennial
You know,
Olympic Park.
here's a silly concept. A good business model ought to be, it should be paying for itself.
Well, they're not even close to that. That's
Well,
I forget the numbers,
I think that
but
it
that's
pays
not even
for
close.
itself. Well, you know,
Well,
no public transit pays for itself, right? We know this.
It
MARTA
has to be
doesn't pay for
subsidized.
itself.
It has to be
Everything is
subsidized.
all of it is Amtrak.
Yeah.
All of it is subsidized.
To me, the
Right.
big news in that story was that the connection to the Belt Line is like 20, 30 years away.
Yeah.
So it is just a boondoggle, as we
Well,
said
it's
it
not a
was. It has
boondoggle.
no real purpose.
Well, it is for tourism. It's a good thing, and also if it promotes business development along
Are
the
people
line,
still
it's also a
sleeping
good thing.
in the cars?
You know, the thing about it is the investment. And if you go up, for instance, Edgewood or in those kind of, you know, in Edgewood, you've got one of the top restaurants in the nation now. This is in the old Fourth Ward. And you see the investment that's taking place.
Yeah,
and the streetcar is a direct result of that investment.
Now,
and so
and
in
Georgia
that way,
State
it
as
is
well.
more than paying
But
for
a
it,
far
so.
bigger deal went down this week, much bigger deal, with the City Council approving the $110 million project to renovate Phillips Arena, make it state-of-the-art. We are the city of disposable stadiums. We've decided that. But look, we're not going to dispose of Phillips Arena. We're going to fix it.
redo it.
And then late in the week, we learned that the ownership group of the Hawks is negotiating for land around Phillips Arena. I'm not sure exactly which land that is yet, to do something like the Braves have done in Cobb County. I think that's all good. A lot of people, though, have deep objections to any government money going to rich sports barons. But I think you got to keep that
you know,
team in town.
and I think Mayor Reed alluded to the kind of investment that's going to flow as a result of the deal that they struck, that the City Council approved, when he said, as a result of your action today, you're going to see billions of dollars in investment. And when he was
Referring
talking
to that
about
land thing,
he
yeah.
was referring to negotiations, very secret at this point, between the Hawks owners and Norfolk Southern for the railroad gulch. And if they are able to purchase that property and develop it, as so many people have wanted to do, and we've heard Tony Ressler and others refer to this kind of development in downtown Atlanta, it could be a huge boom.
Well, and the Hawks
Yeah.
are putting in $50 million, as I understand it, of the $110 million.
Right.
Then I saw Caesar Mitchell say that, the City Council president, say that some of the funds are going to go to the community around Turner Field from the sale of Turner Field.
Right.
Are they still camping out there around Turner Field? Is that still?
No, they've ended that.
Is
No,
that
and
they got their $5 million and are going home? Is that the way that works?
The
or-
cranes
They
are
were paid.
already up there. They're beginning to change it over into another whole thing for
Absolutely,
Georgia
and,
State.
exactly
And that's
right.
the other
It's
thing I was
been
going to say.
transformed.
In the area, Georgia State has built 2 more high-rise dormitories in that block area around Auburn and Edgewood and the streetcar. 2,000 students in each one. I mean, it's a hugely
That
populated
college
area.
is really growing.
Yeah.
Saved downtown,
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
It really did. Just a last thought on that taxpayer idea. You know, you say, okay, we shouldn't have the taxpayers fund the Falcons and fund the Hawks. But are you really going to sit still while they leave town? No. So,
And plus, they're
and we're looking
using car
at very,
rental.
yeah, we're looking at some very
taxes.
creative kinds of financing methods,
Yeah.
car rental
I
taxes,
mean,
airport, and that sort of
you know,
thing.
I want to be a good ideological conservative, but you can't really let the teams leave town, Phil, right?
Well, you can't get ripped off either.
Well, that's true. You referring to Cobb County?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna say
Okay,
what?
and you said it with a streetcar right behind you. That's cool. All right, well, when we come back, we will do winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And I will begin with you, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Dick. A deal on Peachtree and Pine, the closing finally. It's been 10, 12 years in the making.
The homeless shelter.
The homeless shelter at Peachtree and Pine, exactly right, allows for the opportunity for those folks to receive the kinds of services that they genuinely need at smaller, more effective facilities. My hat is off to Mayor Kasim Reed, who has worked really hard to make this happen, and A.J. Robinson at Central Atlanta Progress. So both of them are my winners. My loser has got to be Tommy Benton, who his latest, this is the Republican from Jefferson in the state legislature, stripped of his chairmanship and removed from a study committee on civics education after distributing a article saying that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. And we've seen this time and again from this guy. He said that the Ku Klux Klan made people straighten up. He has refused to attach his name to a statue of Martin Luther King.
He's just not a good
It
person.
throw a sheet on it.
His constituents elected him. He should be allowed to speak. The danger to free speech is grave at this point in our. I'm not agreeing with him in any way. I'm just saying it's a grave danger. Alexis,
Done it.
yeah.
Well, it doesn't need to be rewarded either. I want to congratulate Milton Little, the head of the United Way, has been granted a 3-month sabbatical to refresh and recharge, so good for him. Also, Atlanta Police Chief Erica Shields and True Colors Theater Company. She was part of a panel on race and the police that drew like over 100 people on a Saturday afternoon, and she was really wonderful, frank, forthright, and sensitive, and just a really good leader, so I'm excited to see her there. And then finally, the city is increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next 2 fiscal years, so that the people who work for the city now will be able to have, hopefully, a little bit better of a living wage.
That's for city employees.
Yes, for city employees. And let's hope that others will follow
I know where they'll
suit.
go next, Phil.
Guess who the winner is? Karen Handel. And
Oh, yeah, don't
her
forget about
campaign manager, Rob Sims, as we discussed, it was a well-run campaign with virtually no mistakes. Ossoff, the loser, looked like he was running for class president. He just didn't have the gravitas.
come on.
And you know, when he was asked the question, would you vote for Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker of the House, and he said he didn't know. Come on, that is so unbelievable. Just things like that. What a loser. You know, Transit for Cobb is a new organization. They're going to be looking at some transportation options as well. They should in Cobb and going northward, maybe more light rail, better improved bus service. I'm glad to see it.
We got to get out my winner, Jon Ossoff, running the most disciplined, smart campaign I've ever seen, even if it was totally morally bankrupt of ideas. And Freddie Freeman's going to play third base, really? We'll look at that next on the Georgia Gang.